Okay. MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live program.
Hey, welcome you all. This is Ramana Anamraju, the host of the MedBreaks webcast. Today is a special presentation because of the Martin Luther King Day. I want to do a special. I'm from Atlanta, and my children were born in Atlanta. So I have a long relationship with the Atlanta community. So I love to, this is a Martin Luther King's Day is certainly special. I went to the Civil Rights Museum several times. I took my children. It is a really wonderful thing to go there. So, Martin Luther King said that about his arm in the healthcare. So I need to talk about a little bit about healthcare. Martin Luther King says that the worst form of the one of the most injustice is this is a saying actually. Let me read his thing. Of all the forms of the inequality in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman because it often results in physical death. He's one of the great orators of our generation. I tell you, our previous generation. Or the Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and then Churchill, British Prime Minister Churchill, and then I put the third among the top three orators is Martin Luther King. He is really a great orator. If you understand that English, he said that in health. He said that when he didn't say healthcare, injustice in health that means social determinants, education, financial, emotional, all of them are included there. And then when you look for, the inhuman, usually the people is inhumane. He was going to the extreme saying that by not taking care of the people is a very inhuman, is a cruelty to the highest form. So his English is one of the best we could learn from him. He is the greatest orator. When my children were growing up, always I used to play all his audios, in fact, all his speeches, great things. I'm going to play a little bit of snippet in the end. But we have a distinguished guest today, as you know, Dr. Richard Allen Williams. He is my mentor and my guru, and he is a friend of mine for a long time, for more than 20 years. And he is a truly, let me introduce him through video rather than I talk about, is not enough. I have a short video that I'm going to play that video about him. So then after that, I will bring him to the stage.
My love has come.
Hello, this is Ramana Anamraju. Welcome to MedBix webcast. Today's interview is with Dr. Richard Allen Williams. Dr. Richard Allen Williams, medicine is a true calling. He is putting unrelenting fight against disparities in American healthcare system, particularly for African Americans. This Harvard-educated cardiologist has numerous awards and honors throughout his long distinguished career. He has a long-standing relationship with the Harvard School of Medicine in Boston and UCLA in Los Angeles. He is a recipient of numerous awards that include a Lifetime Achievement Award from Harvard School of Medicine and UCLA. Black Enterprise magazine recognized him as one of the 100 best doctors in America. He is a founder of Association of Black Cardiologists and also served as a president of a National Medical Association, the largest African American physician network in America. Dr. Williams received a special recognition from American Association of Cardiologists of Indian origin and also a friend of founder, fellow cardiologist Dr. Naveen Nanda. On this July 4th, 2020, America's Independence Day, about honor and duty, it is worth noting Dr. Williams served as a commanding officer for US Army in Germany in 1960s. He is a jazz enthusiast and I'm fortunate enough to attend one of his concerts at his house before pandemic. Dr. Williams authored several books. One of his first books, Black-Related Diseases, published by McGraw-Hill, and his recent book, Blacks in Medicine, both are selected by Smithsonian Museum of History, recognizing his seminal work for African American health disparity. The book, Blacks in Medicine, is socially conscious, culturally relevant book, explores the little-known history and present climate of Black Americans in the medical field. It reveals the deficiencies in the American healthcare structure that have contributed to the mismanagement of healthcare in the African American population and examines cross-currents that intersect with the major events, like the ones we are facing now, the pandemic and the racial protests.
My love has come along.
Welcome, Doctor. Welcome, Dr. Williams. It's an honor for me to have you.
It's my honor to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, your journey, just give me I played a video. I don't know whether you watched it or not. Is all your history, all your background, a little bit I gave the place you're born and then the all your awards you received. I played a video. So there's an introduction there. Tell me your perspective. What is the healthcare so far? And what is your journey, personal journey up to this point?
Well, first of all, let me say happy King Day to you and to everybody who's listening in. This is a very significant day in our history, one that was hard to come by because not everybody was in agreement with the idea that Dr. Martin Luther King, despite all of his accomplishments and sacrifices, deserved to have a day named for him as a holiday. Fortunately, it did go forth, and we now are able to celebrate Dr. King. And so this is the day, January 16th. So I think it's fitting that we start things off with his memory, and everything that I will be saying today in this brief presentation will be in memory of Dr. King and his sacrifices. You asked a question about something regarding where I was born and what.
Yeah, it's just brief. I already played a video, but just a brief background of yours a little bit, so people.
Yeah, well, I'll mention something very significant. I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, which is the hometown of our current president, Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was a family friend back in the day and was, in fact, the best friend of my late brother. So I'll just bring that into context. In any event, fast forwarding to the issue at hand, and that is my book, the new book that I've published, which is called Blacks in Medicine. Before we get into that, I just want to mention that something that you brought up before. My first book was called The Textbook of Black-Related Diseases, and this is here. That was published almost 50 years ago in 1975 by McGraw-Hill. And it was the first book that brought to the attention of people that there were some differences in regards to diseases as they present in blacks versus whites. Now, before going any further in regards to the publications that I've done, I want to mention something very significant. And that is that back in the 18th century, there was a statistician and demographer named Hoffman who was engaged by the Prudential Insurance Company at that time to do a survey of the slave population of the United States and to determine how sick they were, basically. Now, this is during slavery, and he did his survey across the country and came back with a report that said that the slaves were very sick, were not in good health, and that unless something were done about it, that the black population would cease to exist. In other words, would become extinct by the year 2000. So that's a very striking fact. The fact that that long ago, we were able to establish the illness of the African American population in the United States. And we come considerably forward to the present time where we see these things that we now call healthcare disparities being exhibited. They are a direct fallout from slavery, and slavery was responsible for the poor health conditions of blacks, which persist to this day. And that's what I'm writing about in Blacks in Medicine. In actual fact, that book, which you've shown, I think, on the screen, is a compendium. Okay.
We'll go through your book in a second. Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, that is the root cause of the problem. But even there is another problem now, is even if we are spending a lot more money than before, is the American healthcare system became a paradox. More you spend, less care we are receiving. What is the cause of that problem, you think, Dr. Williams?
Well, you're exactly right. We are 35th in the world in regards to the delivery of health care from the standpoint of the parameters that we measure, such as infant death rates, maternal mortality, and longevity of different races. So we rank 35th in the civilized world, as it might be called, despite the fact that we're number one in healthcare spending. We spend more money on healthcare than any other individual item in this country. A third of the money that is spent by the United States is on healthcare, despite the fact that we don't get as much bang for our buck, as you might say, as you think that we should get.
I am from India. We have diabetes is the biggest disease in India. I have mixed race children. You met all of them. You know my family very well. So what are the disease factors among the African Americans? What are the major diseases that we need to be concerned about, and what we need to pay attention as a healthcare system?
Well, there are many, and this book that we're going to discuss points those out. One of the things that I want to point out before we go on to describing those diseases and talking about them is the fact that there is something that underlies our healthcare system, which is responsible, I believe, for the disparities that continue to occur, despite the fact that we spend all this money. And that factor is racism. Institutional racism is responsible for the fact that we see less good results and outcomes in Black Americans as opposed to white Americans when so-called equal health care is applied, because health care is not equitable. And so we're in a fight now to try to establish healthcare equity. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to bring your presentation actually. A little bit of you can talk a little bit about that presentation, and I'm going to bring it. We'll be on the side watching Then I will bring the next generation. Ramesh, you wanted to come online, and you can watch also. I have a Gen Z. Ramesh Alexander is going to come in. He's a Gen Z guy. Gen Z Ramesh Alexander is his son. He's going to come in and join. But anyway, let me talk about his book his book is that is Ramesh Alexander, is a neuroscience graduate. He's going to join. Of all the forms of that I already mentioned this was in March 25th. Actually, he told in March 25th, 1966 in Chicago. But now next is Blacks in Medicine. I already gave long introduction to the Dr. Richard Allen Williams. Still, that is a short one. But let us talk about some of the. I played a video already. So let me talk about some of the a few people that I took from that book. So, Dr. Williams, could you please give an introduction to those, give us some brief about those people that I on the screen? First one is a Bernard Tyson, Mr. Bernard Tyson, I think.
Okay, I'm not seeing everything on the screen. I see Dr. Drew's picture there.
Yeah, you're cutting off a little bit. Oh, that's the reason you're saying that. I think your camera, I'm not sure why it is doing that. This is about Bernard Tyson. Can you talk about him? I will mention a couple of names.
Bernard Tyson was the president and CEO of Kaiser Permanente, one of the largest, actually the largest HMO in the country, and has been there for years and years. He died at a very early age, just a few years ago. It was actually about 4 years ago that he suffered sudden cardiac death. And he was a tremendous supporter of health equity. And in fact, he did everything that he possibly could to make sure that Kaiser's resources were applied to improving health care for everybody, and especially poor minorities. One of the things that he did was to establish what is now called the Bernard J. Tyson Kaiser Permanente Medical School, which is now about 3 years old in Pasadena, California.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, that medical school is up and running, and it is extremely significant because of the fact that for the first 5 years, the first 4 years, the students pay no tuition. It's tuition free for them. And all of the students are chosen as members of minority groups, underrepresented minorities. First time in history that any school has ever done that.
Interesting. I met Mr. Bernard Tyson. He came to one of the Thai meetings that I happened to meet him before he died. So you took the Kaiser Permanente from nowhere to become a force to reckon with. That is a major player in the healthcare field, right, Dr. Williams?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the next one is, I don't know whether you can see it, Dr. James McCune is the first licensed physician. Can you let me talk about that with him, about that? First African-American physician, James McCune.
Yeah, he was the first physician who attended a U.S. Black physician who attended a U.S. medical school. And he was revered by his patients, practiced on the East Coast, and he was one of our earliest, if not the earliest, medical practitioner who was Black and licensed.
The next one is Charles Purvis. He is the founder of the Harvard Medical School.
Charles Purvis?
Yes.
He wasn't the founder of the Harvard Medical School, but in any event, he was a Black physician who was instrumental in Howard School of Medicine in Washington, D.C.
Okay, then next one is Dr. Jane Wright, Louis Wright's daughter, cancer specialist, Jane Wright.
Yeah, Dr. Jane Wright was the daughter of Dr. Louis Wright, who was an outstanding internist and surgeon in New York City. Dr. Jane Wright became outstanding on her own. She was an outstanding cancer researcher and did a great deal to establish the importance of cancer in Blacks.
I have a strange we have a strange connection with the Dr. Wright family. I tell you, one of my distant relatives, Dr. Yallapragada Subbarao, he came to Harvard Medical School in 1923, and then he became a Lederle lab director, and he was trying to do the first broad spectrum antibiotic research. Then they could not find any place to do the clinical trials. He went to Dr. Louis Wright. He's from Georgia also, Louis Wright. So they together they did the clinical trials for the iromycin, first broad spectrum antibiotic, and then it became a resounding success in that one. So that is my hometown man that came to Dr. Louis Wright. That's his daughter. That is, she's a cancer specialist.
Well, that research was huge because Dr. Louis Wright was responsible for introducing what was called aureomycin, one of the
Yes.
first earliest antibiotics into the nation. And it was responsible for eradicating a lot of illness, especially things like what we used to call Quincy sore throat and a number of health problems that were suffered not only by blacks, but by everybody. So he was a champion and a hero, saved numerous lives through his research.
I did a special on that one. Actually, is the association with the Dr. Yallapragada Subbarao, the biochemist, who did the aureomycin. Both of them together, they came back with this one, and he did a clinical trials in a Harlem hospital. It is a fascinating story. I did a story on him. The final one, I'm going to talk about Dr. Charles Drew. Everybody, people know, but I'm a lot of audience from India and here, the people may not know his name, but little bit, I'm going to talk about Dr. Charles Drew quickly. You mentioned about he was born in 1904 and died in 1950, very young age, 45. So tell me something about Dr. Charles Drew. Have you met him, Dr. Williams?
I never met him, but I met many members of his family, including Sylvia Drew Ivy, who is a member of the Drew University Medical School team here in Los Angeles. But in any event, Dr. Charles Richard Drew was a surgeon who was the head of the Department of Surgery at Howard University School of Medicine in Washington, and was one of the top surgeons in the world. He was killed in an auto accident in the southern part of the United States.
I'm going through that. So there's a story, it's like 5 slides. I'm going through his story. So the next one, actually, he went to school I went to school in the same town, Montreal. I went to McGill University. I'm right across Concordia. I went to do regular school in Concordia University. Even my nieces and nephew one of my nieces definitely went to McGill University. So he went to school there. He was the Prime Minister of Canada, went to school in McGill. And Charles Drew went to medical school, right, Dr. Williams?
That's correct. He went to McGill.
He is a McGill, and he graduated from McGill, and he went to residency there, 1 year residency in the Montreal General Hospital. So he did a plasma separation. Tell me something about that? How did you do the plasma separation? Why it became so famous, Dr. Williams?
Okay, well, that was the most significant thing I think that he did, and it was done during World War II. During World War II, there were thousands of soldiers who were bleeding to death on the battlefield, and there was no blood available to replace the blood that they were losing. So Dr. Drew developed a process of separating the plasma from the whole blood and using that plasma to infuse into the patients to restore their blood volume, which saved their lives because, as many people know, you don't necessarily need whole blood to replace the loss of blood. If you have volume like plasma or crystalloids, you can get by for a while until you get the patient to a position where whole blood or blood cells can be infused. So he developed that technique, which eventually developed into the American Red Cross. That was the origins of the Red Cross here in the United States.
Yes. The reason is you cannot store the few hours. The whole blood will it's not stable. It is you can store the dry plasma for 2 months. That the
That's
storage
right.
is a big advantage in transport, right? That's the biggest advantage.
Yes.
Then he was a Blood for Britain project. He was spearheaded because he was connected with one of the professors that he met in Montreal, John Bettel. He became a royal surgeon. He was in charge. That's why there was a connection there. It's American. He started American Blood Bank, right, Dr. Williams? He started American Red Cross Blood Bank. He started the first
Yes, he
blood bank.
started the blood banking system and eventually evolved into the American Red Cross.
Yes, but he could
Mhm.
not able to donate his own blood, right? That he was a very troubled by that process, right? Right?
No, there was definitely blood segregation at that time, so that black blood that was collected could not be infused into white patients, even though white blood could be given to blacks. And that was another disparity and discriminating feature of our healthcare system that was eventually overcome, but actually not too many years ago did that happen.
Yes. That's Dr. Drew is an amazing figure who is recognized in our field as one of the forefathers of improving blood storage. That is Columbia University. Dr. Spitlank is talking about. He has a lot of accolades. Um, became a Dr. Charles Drew became a symbol of intellect and determination and courage for humanity's struggle against racism. And then as a Charles Drew, that is a naval ship, right, Dr. Williams? He has the U.S. Navy installed named after him, the naval cargo ship, right?
That's right. And maybe even more importantly, he has a medical school named after him here in
Yes,
Los
that I'm
Angeles.
going to come after that. That I'm going to,
Okay.
yeah, that is where we are together. That's you, me, and Charles Drew Medical School, and there, we're all
Oh,
together there in that
okay.
picture. I don't know whether you can see that picture or not.
Yeah, I see it partially.
Yeah, that's Dr. 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 Williams. You are no less than Dr. Drew. In fact, your
Oh,
contributions enormous to the field of medicine. You're a champion for always. You're champion the disparities among the healthcare system. It is really truly bothering. This is still. The diseases don't discriminate the races. The pandemic proved it for us. So what are the solutions for this thing besides the what are the solutions we can give a practical solutions for this problem, I think?
you're saying what, or
What
asking
are
what
the
are the solutions?
solutions for this? Racism is definitely a factor, but what are the things? What are the practical ways people can solve this problem? Even now, they are discriminating poor whites, and everybody is struggling now. There is a lot of discrimination going on in the healthcare. So that is a bigger challenge now. How do we solve this problem? I think.
Well, I think that the answer lies in what is causing the problem. And may I strongly suggest something that I mentioned before, the cause of disparities, the underlying cause, the root cause, if you may, is racism. So if that's the cause, the solution is elimination of racism. And then it becomes a matter of how you do that. In healthcare, racism is multifaceted and has to be approached from that standpoint. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that there is a move afoot in Congress led by Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California to establish a national center for health equity and social justice, which, if it's successful, would eliminate racism in institutional racism
Yeah.
in all of its forms throughout the country, federally based program. And I'm championing that and trying to bring general support to that effort. So anybody who is listening in on this needs to stay tuned to that program, because I think in that program lies the potential solutions to what you're suggesting. as healthcare problems that need to be.
This is Ramesh. There's a Gen Z guy. Yeah, so Ramesh, so you met Dr. Williams already, right? You met him. Dr. Williams, you moved a little bit. Come to the camera a little bit. You're cutting off. Yeah, that on the you move a little. Yeah, now your camera is center out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know whether I can adjust.
Yeah, that is the best. Yeah, okay, you can do that. So, Ramesh, what do you think as a Gen Z? What do you think of the racism and the discrimination in the healthcare industry? What are the things you face it, and what do you think? You work as a healthcare consultant. Is Ramesh Yanamaraju is a graduate of Vanderbilt. Ramesh is my son. He has my last name. So he graduated from the Vanderbilt University with MS. Tell me, what is the Gen Z you're facing? Dr. Williams will know a little bit about how your generation is facing. So tell me about that, Ramesh.
Well, yeah, I'm actually Gen Y. I'm an early 90s baby, but as I guess in X and Gen Z maybe. So like Dr. Racism in healthcare is very multifaceted. It starts on the I can give you an example. So in the night, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're not hearing clear because I told you that Chrome, you need to be joining with the Chrome. Audio is a big problem in this thing, but don't move.
Well,
stay there where it is. Don't move too much. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now?
It's okay, but still audio is you have 1 minute. Go ahead and say that, whatever you want to say.
Okay, so there was a letter that famously went around from a school that it was around 1960, and it was to an African American applicant, where regardless of his qualifications, they blatantly told him that he would not be able to because he was black. And
I didn't get it. I didn't get. Tell me again one more time, because we are breaking up. This is I was telling you. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, talk slowly and then finish up. Yeah.
Okay, so basically went around. It was a medical school letter from a famous school down south, 1960, where an African American student had applied, and regardless of his rejected solely on the fact that he was African American. And this was in 1960. Type of institutionalized racism has existed within the confines of administration. The famous stereotype that black patients can withstand more pain than patients. And so little misunderstanding racism of that
Hold on
sort.
1 second. Dr. Williams is saying black patients is a myth up there. Black patients can withstand pain more. That is a myth that he propagated in the racism circles. Could you comment on that?
That's a myth. That's a myth.
That's a myth, right? Yes. Yeah. So what is the next one, Ramesh? You were working for a Medicaid Advantage plan, particularly people who are underserved areas, and then people who are disadvantaged economically, but the Medicaid plan. What is your opinion? What is the strength and weaknesses of that system?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think one of the main disparity I think is resources and education for people who are even on Medicaid and Medicare. A lot of them may have issues with a certain type of tech. You might need a cell phone to access it, certain like that.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit.
Might not.
Yeah. So tell me again. I will talk with him and about that.
Yeah.
You have any question for Dr. Williams?
Yeah. As a matter, during your journey in medical school, especially back years ago, prejudice or issues that you face, internal systemic and internal?
Yeah. Okay. let him answer it. So I'm going to put you on the backstage because your voice is completely breaking up. Let me bring Dr. Williams on the stage back. Yeah, Dr. Williams. So he's asking, did you face the racism while you're going through the school in the internal or external? What he's asking.
I think that you're asking what challenges I faced when I was in medical school.
That's right. He was asking. My son is asking about that.
It would take all day to describe them.
Let
Let me simply say that they were multitudinous and very, very difficult to overcome. And I didn't get very much help in trying to do that. I was pretty much on my own. But I got through with determination and with some help from a few individuals. But in regards to the challenges that, say, Black students might face in medical school, I want to go back to what I consider the index case
Yes.
of a Black student who was admitted to Harvard Medical School, where I studied cardiology. He was admitted in 1850, and in my book, I've profiled him. His name was Martin Robison Delaney. Dr. Delaney, as he subsequently became called, was admitted to Harvard Medical School in 1850 and was discharged from Harvard Medical School, expelled in 1851 after less than a year of study. And as I said, he was the first Black student admitted, and he was discharged by the famous Dean Oliver Wendell Holmes on the supposition that the white students did not want to study with him. And as it was, he and 3 other students that were subsequently admitted, Black students, were forced to sit in a cage in the amphitheater at Harvard Medical School, separate from where the white students were studying. So it's rank discrimination, no question about it. But the main thing is that he was not able even to finish his course of study after being admitted to this very vaunted medical school. And it was because of racism. That is the kind of thing that has persisted over the years, maybe in different forms, but it's there nonetheless. And we now see that because of racism of one kind or another, that the numbers of Black students who graduate from medical school are deficient. In fact, we see figures that show that the number of Black students graduating from medical school today are less than they were, say, 25 or 30 years ago. So we're going backwards, and we need to increase the pipeline of
Yes.
Black students going into medicine. I'm sure that's something that
Absolutely needed that one.
Yes.
Dr. Williams, what is Martin Luther King message about the healthcare in general overall? Anything he gave a special message about the healthcare? He was concerned about it besides that quote that was mentioned?
Well, as you know, Martin Luther King was a champion of civil rights. Civil rights has many faces. There's the civil rights of society. There's the civil rights of health. And he actually proclaimed that he wanted to see the civil rights of health upheld, that people had a right to high quality, the highest quality of healthcare delivery, which they were not receiving. And that was one of the things that he was fighting for, alongside fighting for voting rights and all of the other rights that minorities needed to have, along with Caucasians.
Yes.
So Martin Luther King was quite a champion. And in fact, as you know, I had the privilege of serving as a medical director at Martin Luther King Hospital after it was established here in 1970 or 1971. And I'm very proud of that. It was established on the ashes, as we say, of the Watts Rebellion, which was held because of the fact that there was not sufficient health care for the people of Watts, the South Central California. or Los Angeles. And Martin Luther King came to Los Angeles at one time. I was privileged to be in the audience of people who met him at the airport.
Oh,
And that was one of the highlights of my life, being able to meet this great man. He gave me inspiration throughout my life because, as I say at the tail end of my brief bio, I wake up every day with inspiration given to me by Dr. Martin Luther King to do something by the end of that day to benefit other people. And that's exactly what Dr. King did.
yeah. Let me show you a little bit about Dr. King. He went to India. He went to, he went to India and met the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. He was there. The Coretta Scott King. Actually, I met her a few times. Coretta Scott King. She's in sari in the middle here. She's wearing an Indian sari. So we have some Indian audience. I don't mention. She was excited to meet President Nehru, and both of them are very well received in India. And then she was very active in the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta. Civil rights. We used to go there and we celebrated all the times the Gandhi's birthday there. So she was always attended there. Whenever we went there, she was always attending the Gandhi's birthday. So I met her a few times. We didn't have cameras at the time but what he said is very good. Make career of community. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a greater person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. Beautiful saying in this one. He was
Well, as you know, Dr. King was a student of Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
in fact, what you mentioned there about being beneficial to humanity through your actions, I saw a merging between humanity and humility in Dr. King, because he approached his work in trying to uplift humanity by being very humble and carrying on a peaceful resistance to racism.
Oh yeah. So I'm going to play one of the final speeches in the Nobel, just about 1 minute short video of Martin Luther King, and he was
And when the
on
blazing
the
light
Nobel
of
Prize.
truth is focused on this marvelous age in which we live, men and women will know and children will be taught that we have a finer land, a better people, a more noble civilization, because these humble children of God were willing to suffer for righteousness' sake. I think Alfred Nobel would know what I mean when I say I accept this award in the spirit of a curator of some precious heirloom which he holds in trust for its true owners, all those to whom truth is beauty and beauty truth, and in whose eyes the beauty of genuine brotherhood and peace is more precious than diamonds or silver or gold. Thank you.
That was a Nobel Prize speech. I played a Nobel Prize speech that I played just a short clip, because it's getting a resounding. That's why I put you on the backstage. You can see, I will send you the link for the video. You could see the entire video. It is truly an honor, sir, to, talk about what is the message you have? What is the legacy? What is I wanted to tell the next generation of African Americans or this Gen Z generation like my son? What do you want? What do you want to give a message to all of them? What struggles they need to face and what they need to fight for?
Well, I'd just like to make a brief remark about what that video that you just showed. That was Martin Luther King giving a speech at the time that he received the Nobel Peace Prize.
Correct.
And that was so important that he was recognized for his peaceful uh, approach to fighting against racism. It goes hand in hand with what you had shown before about his meeting with Mahatma Gandhi
Yes.
and his approach to what Gandhi had recommended to him in carrying
Non-violence.
out his struggles.
Yes.
I also would like to say that I'm proud of my parents for being able to attend the 1960 March on Washington. Despite the fact that they were very old and debilitated, they insisted on going on that march, which is something that gave so much support for our current struggles against racism today. And I understand that there may be another march in the near future that might be carried out. I heard that being pronounced by Reverend Al Sharpton just the other day. So we may be in line for something else that brings us to the point of redoubling our efforts to accomplish healthcare equity
Yeah.
and
That is
equality for all.
health equity. That is absolutely health equity is the key, Doctor. 1 second. Yeah, just making it. Yeah, health equity is the biggest struggle. Yeah, this is a problem around the world with one form or the other forms. They discriminate by race, religion, caste, creed. This is the situation we need to solve. And the first thing is in the United States is the brutal oppression of this racism. Should healthcare? We need to be equity has to be in the central state, play a central role in the future of healthcare, solving any problem in healthcare system. Do you agree with that, sir?
I do.
So, what is the final message you want to give? Thank you. And then I will close the talk for this today.
Well, my final message has to do with going back to my book
Yeah.
and focusing on that. I'm showing it again here,
Yes.
Blacks in Medicine,
Yeah.
because if people want to get a clear idea of the struggles that Black people have faced over 5,000 years of history, this book contains it, and it's 200 pages. And I'm proud to produce that book because of the fact that it is something that I've done for the benefit of especially people of color
Where
and
they
communities of color.
can purchase, Dr. Williams? Where they can purchase that book?
Through Springer.com.
Springer.com. Okay.
All they need to do is go to Springer, which is my publisher, and all of the information, and put in my name and the name of the book,
Yeah.
Blacks in Medicine, and it'll come up and can be easily purchased that way.
Sir, it is truly an honor, and particularly in the auspicious day like this today, Martin Luther King special day. I'm from Atlanta. My children were born in Atlanta. We are very specially connected with the Martin Luther King Day, because we were always celebrating all their lifetime. And the moment I moved into Atlanta area, I've been to I involved with all the mayors and everybody that I used to go to Martin Luther King Center all the times. So it is truly an honor, sir, to meet you. You're a iconic figure in the medicine. It's not just a medicine in the blacks, medicine among the blacks. You are an iconic person among all the healthcare in general. So you're a legend. We are truly an honor, sir, to have you. And I'm proud to be your friend.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to have been here. Thank you for the invitation and the honor of being able to address folks on Dr. Martin Luther King's Day.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm going to play that video about the Martin Luther King one more time. That is a final speech in this one. Thank you all.
Thank you.
When the blazing light of truth is focused on this marvelous age in which we live, men and women will know and children will be taught that we have a finer land, a better people, a more noble civilization, because these humble children of God were willing to suffer for righteousness' sake. I think Alfred Nobel would know what I mean when I say I accept this award in the spirit of a curator of some precious heirloom which he holds in trust for its true owners, all those to whom truth is beauty and beauty truth, and in whose eyes the beauty of genuine brotherhood and peace is more precious than diamonds or silver or gold. Thank you.